Hey, what's up, y'all? My name is Dr. TK, clinical psychologist and therapist business mentor. And so, in the year of 2026, the reality is that more therapists are actually online presenting their services. You have a lot more access to free information and AI, including YouTube, podcasts, and of course, the OG books, which means that there's a lot of noise. And sometimes it's hard to decide what to listen to. And so, in layman's terms, private practice we should know is a marathon. It is not a sprint. It is not something that you can put together overnight and you never refine it and you never look back at the foundation again. It is not a quick win. Okay. So the goal when you build a profitable private practice is not that you go very fast. It is that you maneuver through building a business with a goal and that you build it in the smart way. So let's dive into why understanding the marathon mentality is really important, especially in 2026, because a lot of mental health professionals do quit too early and too fast. So, a lot of therapists may leave their job, and I've met a few of them, and they have no plan. They often will panic because their income now all of a sudden feels unstable. They may even show up in their business with a high state of fear because they are so focused on stability. But when you think about real entrepreneurship, stability is not just a paycheck within itself, okay? When you want to run a business and you want to run a practice that stays open for more than 5 years, then you want not stability, but you want consistency, you want systems, and you want patience, AKA the marathon. So, a little bit about my backstory, just so you can get to know me a little bit better. Like I said, I'm a clinical psychologist, I'm a therapist business mentor, and I did not start my career as a therapist business mentor and coach. I started in business, actually running workshops in the community. And then I started picking up clients on the side post licensure for my private practice. Now, truth be told, I started learning about private practice when I was in grad school, but not the way that it is accessible now. I actually went to Barnes and Nobles. I purchased a actual physical book for about $20 that someone wrote on how to start a private practice. And then once I became the student body president in my doctoral program, I requested that we use a pot of our educational funds to pull in individuals that were a little closer to our age that can relate to us. And also, they had a successful private practice. And the main goal was that they share with us students what it is like in real life. Because when I would ask my professors about private practice, a lot of them just pretty much said, keep a 9 to 5 job, you have to pay off these student loans and all the things. And so I started noticing that I was being pretty much shunned out of being able to talk about what's the possibility. So, in the midst of all this and getting licensed, I started a private practice while I had a job through the county in Southern California as a psychologist. And so when I finished my postdoc and I was studying for the exam, I was generating about $60,000. Now, I live in California, so $60,000 is cool. Yes, I was single at the time, no kids, but I had also just got a mortgage. I'd had a car note. I had student loans, all the things. And then once I got licensed, I did receive a nice, hefty bump, and it was around $81,000. So again, I was good. However, I still wanted more money because in Southern California, certain amounts of money don't equal the same, especially when taxes are taken out. And I'm single zero at the time. And so I was teaching at different institutions because I love to teach. And then I also decided to start a part time private practice. Now, when I chose to leave my job, get this. It wasn't because that was my all time desire that I was itching to get out of my job. My job with overtime, I was getting paid over $130,000 gross. Okay. But your girl was burnt out. I was working a whole lot of hours. So because I chose to stay at my job and allow my job to fund my private practice, for me, it was not anxiety provoking at all because I wasn't focused on stability. I was focused on foundation. Okay. So I built gradually. I knew that I had 3 days off with my schedule because I worked 4 10-hour schedules. I was working in the correctional facilities. So I thought Thursday could be my day off to do my catch up because I don't want to be exhausted in my business. And then on Saturday was my free for all. And then on Sunday, I either go back to work or I have another off day because it flip flops every other week. And so I slowly built a part time caseload on Saturdays morning. And then I built a small caseload on Friday daytime. Then I added evenings once I, stopped only serving college students and I was also serving kids, teenagers. And then it built out into a full schedule on Friday. And so I was doing all of this before I left my job. And I also built out a full training site, group practice with 8 clinicians at a time. Most of them were postdocs before I left my job. Okay. So I had time. So let's dive into the exit strategy while you are still employed. And I want you to hear me, whether you are a contractor, maybe you're working in someone else's practice, but your bigger desire was to always have your own clinical practice. I just want to slow you down a little bit because we're going to go over some things that you do want to have your notepad and pen ready and treat this like a masterclass because I don't want you to skip a beat. So first, let's redefine what stability looks like because I don't want it running your life and creating fear in your life. And so stability is not about, I just need to get paid on the 15th and the 30th or every 2 weeks. Stability when you grow a business is going to come from you developing an entrepreneurship skill set. Okay. Also, how do you build out referrals, AKA how do you market? How do you build a relationship capital in the community so you can have word of mouth referrals coming in? When you build a business, it's going to require systems. When you leave your job, you're going to want to have savings set aside. You also want to have confidence because entrepreneurship has ebbs and flows. And so if you rely on one job, for example, as security, you're building already on shaky ground because a lot of clinicians leave their job too prematurely, not looking at the logistics of running a business or running their numbers. And then we wonder why either they go back and or they just feel like they're always on edge. Okay. So when you leave your job, you want to leave off of evidence, like proof that you actually know how to build a business versus like how I'm feeling today. Okay. So if we could just talk real time like FaceTime. You do not want to leave your job because you feel motivated because you watched this masterclass. You also don't want to leave your job when it's part of an adrenaline rush, meaning you're around other therapists who told you how they left their job. Times are different. This is 2026 we're talking about. So when we talk about evidence, you want to be able to leave your job when you have proof for yourself, like receipts, that you can yourself get clients. Do you know how to get clients? Also, have you received any clients? You opened up their case. You saw them for treatment, not just someone calling you and they're not a good match. Also, when it comes down to proof, you want to be able to keep clients. You don't just want to be having these intakes and then it's not a good match, or you can do quick service EAP because EAP expires. What happens after the 3 or 7 sessions is over? Are you going to continuously have to get clients every 21 days? Also, when you're running a business, have you shown yourself that you can actually manage the money that your business earns, not that you earn? Those are two separate things. We don't commingle money, okay? Also, do you know how to set up and run and refine your systems? So in our community, we talk about automation. At least 75% of your business should be automated, set up where when new clients come in, you can press a button, certain things come through, your back office. When someone expresses interest in doing a consultation with you, there is an automation attached. When someone is seeing you in treatment to make sure that they're satisfied with their services beyond your chit chat in a session, there is a system to that. To offboard, graduate a client or someone prematurely terminated, there should be a system for that. Okay. So this is what we mean by evidence. You want to have systems and also How have you been able to show yourself with your own receipts that you can be consistent? I get that on some months it will be high and on some months it will be low. For example, people who work with parents and kids or people who just like to take vacations, like meeting your clients, then your slow months are going to be when everybody's slow months are during the holiday season and or in the summer. Now, if you've been watching your numbers and you've been keeping track while you have a job, then you will come into a new year in your private practice knowing, well, either those are the months that I need to take off, or those are the months that I do another type of service, or those are the months that I do speaking engagements, or I just use my savings to live off of because I've ran my numbers. Next, you want to start part time on purpose, like intentionally. Do not leave your job saying, full throttle, I'm gonna go full time without any receipts. This is your business experimental lab. So you want to use your 9 to 5 job as a way to fund this experiment. And the experiment is you becoming an entrepreneur because, see, being a therapist is a different type of entrepreneur because you're not just building a product and selling it, you are actually involved in the product delivery. Like you are delivering the service, you're doing the paperwork, and you're marketing to make sure that your practice stays afloat. So, what I would recommend, but you can choose whatever number you would like. I would recommend based off your energetic level and availability and your 9 to 5 schedule so that you can have a consistent schedule in your private practice. I would encourage you to get no less than 2, at least up to 5. 5 may be pushing it for some people, but it depends. If you do telehealth, you may be more flexible. I say 2 because if you have one client, you're going to assume that all clients are like that one client and you want to have something to compare it to. So you want to have those 2 to 5 clients that you start marketing to, that you start running your business operations for so you can start building out the back office. So with that in mind, one of the things that I'll make sure to drop in the description box is our private practice profitability playbook. It has a list of like starter checklist things that you can do for marketing, services, and back office structure before you leave your 9 to 5 job. Or maybe you're in private practice right now part time and you want to go full time, but you want to make sure that your back office is set up to catch all of this abundance because you don't want to burn out on purpose. So make sure that you grab that in the description box. So when you think about those 2 to 5 clients, you want to think about, for yourself. I am practicing business ownership. I have the right to experiment. Give myself room to mess up a little bit. It's okay because you are protected financially through your job. So next, let's talk about the scheduling hack because you do want to schedule out clients and time to work on your business so that again, we can prevent major burnout periods and you can also just go at your pace. And so first, you do want to choose days that match your energy and your capacity. So, as I mentioned, when I was in the beginning, I was working a special schedule because I was in the correctional juvenile facilities. So, I had the luxury of every other week having 3 days off and every other week having 2 days off. And so, with that in mind, I knew that my first day off would not be the best day, especially in the beginning of me starting private practice, because I needed time to recoup from anything else that I was pretty much, thinking about and feeling, post work. I'm tired. I have long drives. I loved my job. I loved the work that I did with the kids. However, I was in my car for 4 hours driving to and from work because juvenile facilities are not very close to all the cities in LA County. Okay. So I chose Thursdays to rest and reset. I chose to start filling my Fridays first. So when you think about your energy, you want to cluster clients on days that you can deliver well. And when I say cluster, I'm talking about in a 3 hour window, not 6, but a 3 hour window. Someone is going to ask you, well, when are you available? You're going to let them know I am available on Friday between 10 and 1, not all day after 10. And the reason you want to do that is that you want to have boundaries so that if you're still trying to fill your spots, in the midst of that, maybe you can take that time to work on your business or have other consultations. So don't build a schedule that will burn you out before you even go part-time or full-time. Okay, let's dive into mindset just a little bit more. And so, before you leave your 9 to 5 job, ask yourself about how can you show up and work smarter, not harder, and you can set yourself up for success before you actually quit. And so, first off, negotiate hours if you can. For example, leaving your job. I actually had some therapist coaching clients who did this. Their desire was initially not to leave their 9 to 5 job. They did not dislike their job. They just wanted to pursue their private practice and have more flexibility. So with one particular client, I had asked her, like, do you know if your job will go part-time? And she was like, no. And I said, have you asked? And she was like, no. And so I'm like, that's your homework assignment. I want you to go back, talk to HR, and find out what are the rules and regulations about you going part-time. And also, if you have your own business, if you want to bring that up, will there be a conflict of interest? Within a week, maybe not even a week, a couple of days, she had a response via email that let her know that she could actually step down to part-time, but she needed to do something for a certain period of time, let's just say 90 days, in order to wing down. And that was quite fascinating because, again, are we operating off assumption? Now, that is for the person who actually you enjoy your job. So maybe you can work on a earlier or, earlier in time or flexible schedule so that you can start being flexible with the available times that you have for clients. Like I said, also ask for part-time. Some jobs will outright say no, but ask anyway because you don't want to assume. Also consider contract work later. So some agencies may not want to lose you, but depending on what your role is, because some of us are not therapists, we may be administrators, supervisors, quality assurance inside that agency. Sometimes they would rather work with you part-time, but as a contractor until they're able to replace you or just period. And they're more flexible with your hours depending on your role versus losing you all together. So at the end of the day, closed mouths does not get fed. And so just ask the question. All right. So now we're going to move on to the second portion, and we're going to talk about what I consider the non-negotiables, meaning run your numbers checklist before you leave your 9 to 5 job. And I will say, outside of mindset, by far, this is the area that I notice a lot of therapists just kind of like ignore. Okay. So, first things first, let's talk about health insurance because this right here will have us clutching our coins, okay, staying at that job. And so, health insurance, you have to know how much it really costs if you have to pay out of pocket. And so, this is intertwined with me using my own experience with something that I did in my own private practice. You first want to find out what your job is actually covering in your plan. And so what I did is I called the actual health provider themselves, not HR, and I asked them, is it somewhere on the website or can I download something where it shows me a checklist of every category so that I can know what is covered, what is the copay, and then what is equivalent if I chose to pay for this out of pocket? Is there a deductible or is it an HMO? You do want to know that. You also can call them and you can let them know, hey, I'm going to be self-employed. Here is me plus my dependents. How much am I looking at in terms of a monthly budget? Because this should be your goal for savings unless you can get on maybe your spouse's insurance, which is something you may want to consider. So I'll give you an example. When I was working at the county, we had what's called cafeteria benefits, which meant that I didn't have kids, but if I did, they would have been covered for medical at no additional cost. Okay. So when I left, I knew that I would have to pay out of pocket. So let's just say if I was working at the county right now and I did have 2 kids and a husband. Let's just say my husband had a full-time job that had full-time benefits, but we may have to pay $150 per person to get insured. Well, if I compare the 150 times 4, that's what, $600. Well, I might be responsible for paying $600 for one person if I pay for myself by myself, but times 4. So run your numbers and see what makes the most sense. And just remember that nothing is permanent. Over time, you can change plans. You can get a broker as your business expands. Then you can also create business health plans through your business, but talk to your tax professional, okay? So a reframe, if this is holding you to your job, because I know how important health insurance is, I want you to start focusing on the fact that it is not, oh my gosh, an expense. Okay. It is your focus on how you're staying healthy to run your business. And so I believe that health care is preventative, but I don't want you leaving your job without running the numbers and then you find out later and then you go back to a job just to get health insurance. That's not going to help the future version of. So next is the understanding your business cost and you looking at it from a 12-month perspective, like a whole year, not just, it is October and how much does my business cost for the rest of this year? No. How much is it going to cost you approximately with what you're starting off with right now for the next 12 months? And so things that you want to consider is your EHR. So how much is your EHR per month? With all the bells and whistles that you need to do services. For example, is telehealth an addition? Is you having access to the template library an addition? Is you adding a team member like a VA and, addition in terms of price? Also, what is your phone line system set up? Are you going to go through a virtual number? What are you going to do? Do you need to fund a website? Email marketing, directories, meaning you are on all of these directories, those all have monthly costs, majority of them. If you are going to rent a office, how much does that cost? If you go to a virtual space, understand the lease agreement, okay? Also, what other tech tools will you need? Do you need an updated cell phone? Do you need a webcam? I'll also make sure to link my creator kit from my Amazon store down below. What I've done is taken all the questions that our clients in our community and people who watch like live streams and stuff from me, and they'll say, hey, where did you get your mic? Where did you get your webcam? All those things. And I update that list as my stuff expands. But please note, I didn't start with all this. I believe when you do telehealth, at least at minimum, you need a good device with a nice microphone, right? And then you would want a good webcam. That's it. That is it. And a webcam, all of these together can be $150 and they're a one-time fee. You're not a subscriber to these products, okay? So you do want to know what those fees are, and then you want to multiply it times 12 so that you can understand your bills. Now, next is you do want to understand how much your lifestyle costs with a cushion. I always like a cushion, okay? So what does it cost for you for your life right now if you don't want anything to change with breathing room? So let's just say when I ran my numbers and had a mortgage and had a car with a car note and student loans, but no kids yet, right? My life at that time with my cushion, because I like to travel and I like to shop, was about $5,000 per month. Okay. 5,000 because what I had to add in is my health insurance and not just frivolous things, but I just wanted to run the numbers. What will my life look like if my comfort level with how I live does not change? And of course, you can create tiers to this, but I don't believe or recommend the beans and rice effect because if you're not leaving room to give to yourself as an entrepreneur, you're going to burn yourself out because you don't even have a reward system. So at minimum, 3 months stacked up, but ideally 6 months. And you may be thinking, oh my gosh, I cannot do that. Well, think about what will happen when you leave your job and you don't have 6 months stacked up. And let's just say you did not get your receipts by showing yourself evidence that you can actually build a business and keep clients coming. What's going to happen when the clients run out? You're going to run back to your 9 to 5 job. You're going to also run probably to a job that you don't even want because you just need to pay your bills real quick. Okay. So I would say, and when I left, I had more than 6 months stacked up. But start where you are. Even, I don't care if it's $10 a week. Start putting money aside, and I would highly recommend that you look into a high yield savings account. I teach our community about different variations because they do have different entry points. One of them that we currently use is you have Live Oak Bank. They are online and they have a very nice interest rate. You do have to upload your business paperwork, but it is, I would say, removed from your ability to just transfer money real quick, like in your regular business bank account, like at the major banks you can go to in your car. I like online banks where the money can stack and it's out of sight, out of mind. Another one is American Express high yield savings account. I actually use both, but I love American Express because it also has a business checking account. Just make sure that you read the boundaries around what you get and what you don't get with free. But in the beginning, it's just nice to have. Remember, all of these things are in your private practice profitability playbook. You can get it below, but I did want to mention the high yield savings account just out loud. Okay. But start where you are. Next is you do want to know what support cost do you need for your private practice? And so this can include, but not limited to, your money team, your back end help. Now, I'm not saying that you start off with a virtual assistant or admin assistant right now, but I will tell you down the line, it is highly recommended that you get help, even if it's 2 to 3 hours a week in your business, because a lot of the therapists that I've worked with, they said that once they did hire and they found the right person, they realized that they hired too late, meaning they wish they would have hired when they realized they first needed to hire. So you do want to do some calculation around how much does it cost to have a bookkeeper or have a CPA and maybe their firm does the bookkeeping. Any type of CPA consults. I don't recommend that as a business owner, you only meet with your tax person during tax season. You should be doing tax conversations, liability, profit and loss statements, and talking about tax strategy. Also, you want to understand when you do hire support later, how much is that going to cost? That doesn't mean that you save up for it now, but at least you know when you open your practice, you need this other savings account so that you can hire before, again, you start getting burnt out. So the reality of it is the earlier years in your private practice, it's going to require more investing in your time and in your finances up front to see the ROI later. And I would say that's honestly for every stream of income. And sometimes we may feel like, well, I've already done this for this stream of income. Well, those streams of income are different and they may require different systems and different support. So again, you're at your 9 to 5 job. Now let's talk about pulling your actual paycheck stub, like legit going on the intranet web for your company's website and physically looking at your paycheck stub, looking at your benefit list, seeing what you may not even realize they're paying for that maybe you want to keep. But again, you may have to make a phone call to see if you can take it with you. Okay. So some of the things that I identified early on where I knew they were on my paycheck stub, but I didn't realize that there were stipulations in terms of me leaving with it was life insurance add-ons. And so the company gave us a term life insurance policy. Now, the rule was I could take it with me, but I would have to now pay for it out of pocket. At the time, I think it was like $120, or I can forfeit it, cash out, etc. I had been with the county for 5 years. And so I decided to actually cash out because I had a index life insurance policy, which is a different topic. But either way, you don't want to go under the assumption that you're going to be able to leave with everything on your paycheck stub. You also want to understand disability coverage. And if that's something that you desire to have, you need to start making phone calls to understand the cost. Now, if you like the companies that your job already has, I would start there, similar to how I said for medical insurance. Call them and then, yes, go and get additional quotes so that you just don't go with what you know, because a part of entrepreneurship is to honestly get uncomfortable. You're going to learn things that you were not aware of. So also you want to be aware of any type of retirement match, because when you leave, the match will cease. But the question you want to ask yourself is, where does your money go? Are you going to keep your money at that job, or are you going to roll it over into a traditional 1K? Maybe you have a credit union you can go check out. Maybe you want to roll it over into an annuity. I know I'm throwing out a lot of words, but this is why you want to start having conversations. And I would say start these conversations with your tax professional, and maybe they also have a warm handoff so that you can go talk to people about these things. You can call the providers and you can ask them, what will this cost me if I leave my employer plan? So let's bring this all together with the mindset shift that I want you to bring into and have for the rest of this year. Number one is you want to become your own cheerleader. Okay. You are an entrepreneur. And so people around you may not get your vision and be okay with that. You got to learn how to be okay with that. Some folk around you, let's be all the way real, they're loyal to you at the 9 to 5 job. But once you start leveling up, some people are going to support you and cheer you on. And then some people, you may have to outgrow that circle, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, you cannot expect for everybody else to believe in you because you have to believe in yourself first. Mindset hack number 2, do not chase fast money, build long money. Long money, okay? Marathon money. So building a business is not overnight. I don't care what it looks like when people post these short 15-second how much I made videos and they have not broken down the whole story. What you see right now is their chapter 10 and you're at chapter 2. Remember that you have room to grow, okay? So even great programs, like I have coaching programs and you execute, they don't happen overnight. But the key phrase is you do need to execute. And then if you're stuck with something that you're learning in a coaching program, then show up and ask questions so that you can personalize it and incorporate it inside your business. Your private practice results will come literally from 80% of your mindset and 20% of implementation. I'm not saying implementation and building your business and learning new things is not important, but it is far more important to understand what it takes to believe in yourself and become the profitable private practice owner that is an abundant CEO. That's what we call y'all in our community versus just learning a strategy. You can learn strategy through this video all day long, and then you can leave this video and say, well, I still don't know where to start. And so you don't start. Now, next mindset hack I want to teach you is stop undercharging out of fear. Because sometimes that's where people go, especially when they got the comfort level of a job. Okay. Don't undercharge out of fear. So don't give discounts because people don't even ask for it, but you assume that they need a discount based off of their presenting problem. People pay for what they want. Believe that. Your job is to present your service of value and help them see how you can solve their problem. You are a business owner and then a therapist when you have a private practice. So if you start treating your private practice like a side hustle, that is exactly what it is going to start feeling like. And guess what? Clients are going to do the same thing. Opportunities are not going to come knocking at your door because you look like a side hustler. You don't take your brand seriously. You don't even talk about your business. You talk about everything else under the sun but your business. And then you're crying when you ain't got no clients. So I want you to start pivoting how you look at growing a profitable business. Because some of the things when I take a look back, hindsight, that I wish I would have known, but I think I did a good job, is it is a marathon. There are going to be ebbs and flow because, to be honest, when there were rough seasons, yes, there was, my body started screaming into panic attacks, headaches in my business because I had a definition from my family of what foundation and stability are supposed to look like. And what that started to do is it pretty much blocked my ability to talk about the mishaps in business or the learning experiences in business with certain groups of people for a certain, length of time because they did not understand what it meant to build a business, not just go to a 9 to 5 job. Typically, we're working in these 9 to 5 jobs. So I realized over time, I needed to get still. I needed to turn to my faith. And I also needed to use the mentorship that I invested in. And so I'm not telling you to clearly quit. I am telling you, take your time. Now, if you know a little bit about my story, and I'll make sure to link up some of my past videos, is I did not leave my job on good terms. It is not a secret if you've been around, but that wasn't my intention. It was more of the sight and the buildup. And yes, I started to have panic attacks that led me to leave, but I felt like I left in a good time because I had my savings account. I had already made my conversations happen with all of these agencies and I had my stuff stacked up. But I don't want that for you. I don't want you to leave your 9 to 5 job and you may not like to be there or you don't want to be there full time, but you choose not to do your homework. I've literally laid it all out for you as a jumping point. Now, you can take the next step in the jumping point by checking out the private practice playbook because I then give you more checklist points, masterclasses inside of a beautiful guide that will take you step by step so that you can check certain things before you leave your 9 to 5 job. Okay. So, in total, as a recap, we've talked about the importance of monthly business expenses times 12. You need to calculate those numbers. We've talked about calculating your ideal lifestyle and looking at how much it costs you to live at least 3 to 6 months. Okay. We've also talked about making those phone calls around your life insurance, health insurance, and benefits, and just overall adopting an abundant CEO mindset and taking your time. And so, if you liked topics like this and master classes like this, I would love to have you back. Subscribe to the channel, like this video. And if you want to tell me what was your biggest takeaway from this video, I would love to hear from you in the comment section. I will talk to you in the next one. Bye.